Nothing's happening. Are you on there, Rabbi?
Yep.
I don't know why I'm losing my internet. Okay, something's happening with my internet maybe. Hello, everybody. We're live with Rabbi Pinchas Winston, who is going to talk to us tonight about the purpose of creation. And please check out Rabbi's new course. I don't think it's available yet, but the Rabbi will explain on one of his wonderful websites, 36.org or sharnunproductions.org. And I wanted to say a shout out to Josh Wander, who usually joins us, but since the war started, he's been in Milwim, he's been a reservist, and he's very busy helping protect our country. So let's ask Hashem to bless him to safety and thank him for all he's doing and all of our soldiers, and bring our hostages home soon. And thank you so much for joining us. Welcome, Rabbi.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read something. I spent a lot of time last week just kind of introducing this idea, but I'm going to read something that sums up everything. I mean, it's a world filled with a lot of very intelligent people, a lot of not so intelligent people too, but a lot of very intelligent people, a lot of ideas over thousands of years of history, a lot of explanations, a lot of research and conclusions. And I mean, it's just the body of knowledge today is absolutely awesome. I mean, it's amazing what you can access today just online with a couple of clicks of a keyboard, and what you come up with, and the explanations of things, how they work, why they exist, and it goes on and on and on. And I mean, you can spend a whole hour just describing the body of knowledge today, and still you would only be touching, scratching the surface of it. Yet, I'm going to read something right now that so few people know, and it's going to sound simple. If you understand what I'm saying, it's going to sound simple. I'll explain it. And it sums up everything. I mean, this is the summation. This is years of learning packed into a short statement, trying to get a handle on one particular idea for direction. The rest of the course, which is pages and pages coming up, will explain this in more detail and how it applies to everyday life, situation today in general and specific. And also, if anybody wants any of this, right now I've mentioned it, and it's spread across several books of mine. But this particular course in this organization, this idea, there's some new things also put into it. It's not available just to download. If you want it in the meantime, you can send me an email. I'll be happy to send it back to you as a PDF file, whatever I have so far. But this is the statement. Okay, we need das. What is das? Well, I've mentioned before, das means knowledge, but a specific type of das. There's knowledge and there's knowledge. There's knowledge and there's wisdom. Knowledge, when we talk about das, usually, it's true that it depends on the context, but usually in this particular concept, das is a specific type of knowledge. It's a knowledge that shows you the truth of reality, not just technical knowledge, not just knowledge of the solar system and mathematics or any of the sciences. Right? Even the Gemara itself is not so clear cut in terms of teaching you wisdom about life. It tells you technically how to live according to Torah, technically how to keep Shabbos, technically how to get married, technically how to make vows, how to get out of vows, exactly what to do when damages occur. Right? These are all technical halachas, and each of them is an expression of the truth of God. But you have to dig inside. You have to get to the bottom of it. This week's Parshas Yisro. And Parshas Yisro is the giving of Torah. And we all know that Moshe went up the mountain, came down with the first set of tablets, and he broke them. He broke them because he saw the golden calf taking place below. And then God tells him a little bit later on, Parshas Kisisa, to go back up again. But this time he has to carve out the tablets himself, and God's going to write on them. The first time God carved out the tablets himself, and he wrote on them. The second time Moshe carves out the tablets, and God's going to write on them. So the assumption would be, okay, it's no question that Moshe carving at the tablets is not the same as God carving at the tablets, but stone. It's stone. So God did it with big, lightning, whatever, miracles, and Moshe used some type of tool to carve them out. But other than that, it's stone. And whatever miracle is going to take place with the first set of tablets should take place with the second set of tablets. And the writing, though, that's the most important part. That's God himself not dictating letter by letter, word by word to Moshe Rabbeinu to carve into the stones themselves, but it's God himself, because a lot of miracles involve just the writing of it. And that's it. That's the difference. But Kabbalah explains the difference is way more profound than that. It's the difference between the Torah that we're going to see in the Messianic era and the world to come, and the Torah that we have right now. And the Medrash says that when a person, if they're around, well, God willing, for sure, the Olam Haba, the world to come, but let's say the Messianic era, when they see what Torah is going to look like on that level, same Torah, but on a higher level, more revealed, right? Pardes, remember, Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod, the 4 levels of Torah. Whatever Torah we're going to be learning then is going to make the Torah of now seem like nothing. Hard to comprehend. That's the difference between the first set of tablets and the second set of tablets. So it's a whole different level of Torah that Moshe came down with the second time. But it's there specifically to give us this thing called Das. The level of Das obviously is lesser because of the fact that it's a lesser level of Torah. But whatever Torah is today in our possession, it's there to teach us Das, to give us a specific knowledge, right? In order to be able to separate between the holy and the profane, between Kodesh and Chol. The Gemara asks the question, why is Havdalah, the one we make in davening and Motzi Shabbos, in the Brucha of Atachan El Adam Das, that God, you give man knowledge, you grace man with knowledge, because it takes Das specifically, not just knowledge, but Das, to separate between the holy and profane. Why is it so important? Well, I mean, Shabbos is all about that, but what about the rest of the week? Why must we make that distinction? Because it's the only way to elevate the Netzotzi Kedusha from the Klippas. What's the Klippas? What's the Netzotzi Kedusha? So the Netzotzi Kedusha literally are holy sparks. Their holy sparks are spiritual. They're not physical. They're not sparks you see when someone working on an anvil, hitting metal or sharpening something. See sparks flying in different directions, or a wire that's become disconnected. The sparks go. Those are all physical sparks, physical lights, right? These are spiritual sparks. You're not going to see them with your physical eyes, yet they are the basis of all life, because they are individual packages, so to speak, of divine light, divine energy, that fuels everything, gives life to everything, whether it's plants, whether it's human beings, animals, doesn't make a difference. It takes a Netzotzi Kedusha. And we know this world, especially since the golden calf, and especially since Adam's eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, has good and evil in it. But the good and evil is not always so obvious. Clearly, it's not always so obvious. Look at the world today. I mean, it's absolutely remarkable what's going on in the world today. The people are choosing sides and calling it good when in fact it's evil, and likewise calling the other side evil when in fact it's good. How do you know the difference? How can you know who's right and who's wrong? It's very simple. Without Torah, you can't. Because without Torah, if you don't believe in Torah, then all you have is an opinion. You can't say this is right and this is wrong. In my opinion, this is right. Your opinion, that's right. And I like this better and you like that better. But I can't say you're wrong, in any, existential way, because I have nothing to compare it to. It's just my opinion. I have an opinion, and opinions change. Things that we thought were good a long time ago, today we think are bad, and vice versa, right? Like green beans, for example, right? Everyone kids thought that green beans were terrible when they're growing up. Evil stuff. You grow up, you become older, you realize they're healthy for you. Even more profound things than that. But the Torah itself is an objective standard of truth. Whether you like it or not, you need it. If you want to believe in good and evil, if you want to live by good and reject the evil, you have to have Torah. You have to have some type of objective standard of truth that only God himself can give. Man can't make it. It's not possible, because everybody's going to write their own version of it, which is exactly what's happened for thousands of years. You need that objective source of truth. And that objective source of truth tells you what good and evil is. And once you know what good and evil is, then you can do the good and reject the evil. And when you do the good and reject the evil, you take away the sparks from the klipos. What's the klipos? The klipos are the spiritual reality that results in evil. It's that specific thing that blinds a person to truth. It's that thing in the world that convinces a person that God doesn't exist because they can't relate to him. The word klipa means appeal. Appeal, it's an interposition. It blocks things. It's between two realities. So the klipas, theoretically, or at least technically, spiritually, they encase a person's heart, their mind, and blocks them from seeing the truth. And they have to live also. And how do they live? They live because they also have Netzotzi Kedusha. Because everything lives off the same source of energy, divine energy. Netzotzi is holy sparks that God put into the world to maintain creation. So there's a tug of war going on all through history between the side of good and the side of evil over these Netzotzi Kedusha. Because as long as you have them, you survive. And Mashiach only comes, the Rizal says explicitly, the moment the last spark is out. And an example of this, I don't remember, I mentioned this last week, but an example of this is the fact that, like during World War II, for example, in order to beat the Germans in Europe, we had to cut off their supply line. They use gasoline like we use gasoline. They use fuel as we use fuel. They have to eat like we eat. It's all the same thing. Evil, good doesn't make a difference. We all live off the same things. So the army was very strong as long as it's being fueled and the soldiers are being taken care of, so then the army is strong. So if you want to defeat the army, a lot of times you have to attack their supply lines. And every time that we do good, we do a mitzvah, we use up sparks, we take sparks away from the side of impurity, the klipos, and it weakens them. We're cutting off their supply line by doing that. That's why it's so incredibly important to not only do mitzvahs, but do them with as much vigor and intention as possible, because the more you put into mitzvah, the more sparks you draw to the side of good. Now, it's explained, according to Kabbalah, that the side of evil senses its end. It senses it's losing control, losing power, and grabs for more sparks. It needs sparks. And even though the people themselves down here don't know that's what's going on, the Palestinians, the Hamas, right, as far as they're concerned, they're at war and they're taking hostages to bargain, to try to get back their own prisoners, 150 for one, for the bargain, it's like, that shows you how much they value themselves, right? And they're taking Jews which have these sparks inside them specifically because the klipos work through them to grab at the sparks in order to survive longer in history. That's how it works historically. That's why Hitler, Yamach V'zichro, as long as he had the Jews under his control and wasn't killing them, he was succeeding at war because he's drawing energy from that side. The klipos are taking Netzotzi Kedusha from the side of Kedusha, and also sins. That's exactly what we do. When a person does a sin, they hand over the sparks to the wrong side. Once he began to kill the Jews off, then he weakened his own connection to the Netzotzi Kedusha. He didn't understand that. He doesn't relate to this, doesn't believe in it, but that's what's going on in the spiritual reality. That's the way Kabbalah looks at it. That's the way we look at it. That's the reality. So you need das. You need this knowledge, this understanding, in order to be able to recognize what is the good, to draw the sparks away from the evil to the good and rectify the world. Once they all are gone, right, then the obstacles to the purpose of creation are gone from creation. Because as we said last week, and we're going to see again now, B'ezras Hashem, the whole purpose of creation is the revelation of God. God made everything, every last detail. So a person goes into business, right? They have in mind a certain purpose, maybe to just pick up parnasa, maybe to give their children parnasa, whatever. They're trying to make a living. That's the goal. So they have this idea, right? I'm going to design a new car. Sounds simple enough, not really, but you start with an idea, and the point of this car is going to be unique, and allow people to save money on gasoline and whatever they're going to put into it. But as they start to sit down and figure out what will I need to accomplish that, it gets very complex. You have a whole business. You have to register it. You have to become incorporated. You have to have a board of directors. You have to and then a factory, and maybe more than one factory, and all kinds of employees and all kinds of machinery. It gets extremely detailed and complicated, but the purpose remains the same: to produce a car that's efficient and at the same time earn the person a parnasa. So the same thing is true of God in creation. He had one purpose in mind when he made everything. And when I say everything, we'll see what that means, God willing. But when he had made everything, and everything is so complex and complicated, massive. And you look at the physical universe, and the most amazing thing is the physical universe is nothing compared to everything else that he made. It's just a fraction of 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 everything God made. Just means to prove himself. You get up in the morning and you can ask yourself the question, first the night before you go to bed, but you ask yourself the question too. When you wake up in the morning, you ask one question: I'm about to live another day of life. How can I use this day to be able to reveal God in this world? To be able to see God more myself, right? To be able to see him with my own time, relate to him better than I did yesterday. And if I'm fortunate enough to do the same as well, that's the only question that really counts. You want to make your life meaningful in the ultimate sense. And this is not the way people live. This is all this thing from their mind. It's an amazing thing how so many people can live in this world and never really accomplish that anyway. Just too busy surviving, too busy having a good time, too busy trying to make ends meet, and meet ends, and etc. And even people who Torah mitzvahs understand this is what they have to do. So often it's just a function of this is what religion do. We do this. It's part of our lifestyle. It's part of our tradition. It's part of our Masorah, part of our responsibility. But the real thing, all of this, to now increase the relative in your life and in the world. This is what the mitzvah Kiddush Hashem is all about. So when the last spark has been removed from the klipas, and the klipas go poof, just like that, nothing left. They don't even die. When a person dies, if you kill a person, or a person gets killed, the body falls to the ground. There's the body. You have to bury it. You have to deal with it. It's not enough just to kill the thing. There's the body that remains behind. But when it comes to the klipas, the last spark is gone. The Rizal explains, just go poof, smoke. That's what we did in the Matzah. We say in our Shemon Esrei on the Yom Ryan, we say in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur that evil will disappear like smoke. And smoke, like, very billowy, and it really takes up a lot of space, smells the whole thing, but as the air comes through and blows it away, dissipates and disappears. It was there in the first place. And that's what's going to happen to the klipas. And when that happens, it's collapse, right? One moment, it's dark. The clouds are there. And all of a sudden, the clouds open up and the sun comes through, just like that. And you can feel the burst of sun, breaking through the clouds. And the same thing happens here as well. The moment that the klipas are done, you don't have to invite the Shekhinah back. All of a sudden, God's revelation is there in a major way. In fact, in such a major way that people will be unprepared for what it even means. They tell Esther the Chavetz Chaim that he was always real with the concept that Mashiach could come any moment. And he had a special Shabbos suit, always clean, ready to go. If Mashiach should come, he'd be able to put it on right away. And once he heard a noise in the street and excitement, he put his big day Shabbos on. He ran downstairs to greet Mashiach, only to see was his son-in-law, whom he was probably happy to see also, but it was such a shock, he passed out. He passed out because it wasn't who he thought it would be. So here's the reverse, right? It's like we're going to see something we're not expecting to experience. Because what's the real experience? What's the real difference between the Luchos Rishonos, the first set of tablets that Moshe broke, and the second set of tablets that Moshe brought down and became the basis of our Torah today? It's huge. It's huge. As in, we can learn Torah intellectually. It's very cerebral, but it doesn't change us automatically. When a person learned Torah on the level of Atzilus, Torah's Mashiach, the level of the first set of tablets that Moshe came down with, The experience was unbelievable. When you read a mitzvah, you didn't just read a commandment, a directive, instructions about what to do. You had an experience of God through it. It was like, like that excitement that you feel when you have a fantastic insight, or you experience something you really enjoy. That's, it's like it fills your whole body. You start to tingle. Every single concept of Torah had the power to do that. You were accessing light. Today, the light we have is so withdrawn and so limited that we look at a page, we even look at the Sefer Torah, and we just see black letters on white cloth, on white parchment. We don't have an experience. It doesn't affect us. But at the time of the first set of luchos, you would learn it. You just read a sentence, read a mitzvah, and you would feel, it would be palpable, the experience of God and the experience of His will through the wording itself. It'd be overwhelming. And not just that, but at the same time, it would affect everybody else around you. Not only would you change automatically from the learning itself, but it would spread to everybody else around you as well. They'd also, someone sitting in a cafe, you're learning a sefer, so to speak, and you learn an idea on the first set of, the level of the first set of tablets, and all of a sudden, everybody in the whole cafe is going, whoa, 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 who's learning Torah? Wow, this is unbelievable. I didn't, it's like dinner and show. It's like, I didn't expect that. Whoa, it's like, what an experience. We don't have that today, but we will in the Messianic era. And hopefully, it says that God will give us a greater capacity to be able to withstand that, because it's going to be overwhelmingly great, overwhelmingly, ecstatic. But that's what it was. When that finally happens, when finally the klippos are gone and the last netzotz is out and the Shekhinah is now being revealed, so finally the pasuk from Zechariah that God will be king over the entire land on that day. God will be one and His name will be one. No Amalek, because Amalek divides the name, will be fulfilled. So let me just read that through from the beginning. We need das to be able to separate between the holy and the profane, to remove the tzotzi kedush from the klippos. Once all the sparks are removed from the klippos, they disappear, and all obstacles blocking the revelation of the Shekhinah are finally removed. Then God will be king over the entire land. On that day, God will be one, and His name one. That's everything. This incorporates all knowledge. This paragraph sums up, sforma of Kabbalah, alludes to Torah we don't even know, but this is it. This is what our lives are supposed to be about. Most people have no hasaga. They have no concept. They have no clue that this is what we're supposed to be working on. Once you know it, you can actually, align your life the proper way, which is what we're talking about now. Okay, so the first thing you have to know, I'm going to show you a diagram that, again, if you want to have this diagram for yourself, right now it's not available online, but you can write to me, I'll be happy to send it to you. Right, this is all of creation. I don't know if you can see all of that, but you'll see the circles, you see outside. So the most outer circle represents what's called the halal. The halal was just in the beginning, okay? It says, and these are just points. These are, I'm just not really providing the entire quote because it's very long, right? But it says there are five. These are the 5 levels of revelation. The first is what's called the Or Ein Sof. It is the first revelation from His essence, His hidden essence, which we call Atzmus, that created beings and nothing eminent can grasp. Very short statement, very deep. What does it mean? It means that once upon a time, before anything came into existence, there was only, of course, the reality of God. But the reality of God is such a sublime level that we have no way whatsoever, with all of our knowledge and all of our intelligence, we have no ability, no way to grasp what that is. It's called Atzmus, which means essence. It's called his Nelamas, hidden essence. That's as far as we go. We just know it exists. We know that's responsible for everything, but we can't talk about it because it's just too beyond our comprehension. And if we were to start to describe it, give it even a name is a description, we would be profaning it in the worst way possible. So we don't touch it. We don't do that. But everything began with that. And that was everywhere, infinitely, whatever that means. That's the boundary of that particular reality. But we do know that from that came the first level of tzimtzum, the first level of constriction, the first level that God created something because he decided, again, what that means, because decision usually implies time. When you decide something, it means until now I didn't do that, and now I've decided I will do that. So it's not possible by God because he's not time bound. There's no before and after by God. It's all one reality. But he uses this language to help us through life and understand as much as we possibly can. But it seems to be that at some point in time, he decided, whatever that means. So he had to do something to make it possible to reveal himself. Now, here's the catch. Normally in life, if you start off with something very good and you reduce it, it becomes less good. Not everything, though. For example, the light of the sun. If you were exposed to the full brilliance of the light of the sun, then you would burn up. You couldn't survive, go blind for sure, right? Now, if the point of the sun is it should only be bright, should be a bright burning star out there in the solar system and the galaxy, right? Then reducing its light that a person should be able to use it is not a good thing. It may be convenient, but it's not a good thing because the whole point of the light is that it should be bright. And by making it less bright, you're undoing the purpose of that light. But if the purpose of that light is to be able to allow man to live, which means that he has to be able to function with that light without getting burned up, he has to be able to heat the earth properly so he can survive and give him, photosynthesis and all those other things that God built into creation, then the reduction of God's light the reduction of the sun's light is a good thing, because since the purpose is not the brightness, but the life that it can provide or lead to or help, then reducing it becomes a good thing. So it becomes like the lesser light becomes the better thing, the more, so to speak. So that's a good example in terms of the physical reality. The same thing is true about the light of God. If the point of the light of God was only that it should be the most intense it could ever be, which is infinitely intense, then reducing it is a negative thing. But if the whole point of God emanating his light is for that some being, eventually man, should be able to partake of that light, to receive that light, to enjoy that light, to connect to God, have a relationship with God, then the reduction of the light becomes a good thing. So even though tzimtzum, which means constriction, is seemingly a reduction of the light of God, it's a good thing, even though the light's being reduced, because the point is that something down the line should be able to receive that light and enjoy that light and access that light. And that's not going to be possible if the light remains in its ultimately sublime state. Too powerful, too spiritual for anything physical to exist. There are some questions on this. There are some things that we could ask and go into more detail about. And the truth is, I don't even understand most of these, these things that these questions would lead to. Because at some point in the future, we will go back to a state like that and somehow have some type of existence, but discussion for another time. So that's what that God does. He restricts his light. Now, that only results in what's called Or Ein Sof. That's the first level. That's all the space around the circle, all the white space, infinitely in every direction, all around it, right? There's no circles at this point in time. Nothing, no space. Just that Or Ein Sof. But since that light is a reduction of the original light, it's called a creation. It's called a tzimtzum. Even though on this level, still nothing can physically exist at all. But it's a step in the right direction because it's leading towards the next stage. And the next stage is tzimtzum number 2, the second level of constriction. So why did he do it in 2 phases? We'll have to ask God that one day. It's always, whatever God does is the best for man and creation and free will. But that's what he does. So now God does level 2 tzimtzum, means he constricts his light once again. He already constricted the light from Atzmus to be able to become Or Ein Sof. Now he's going to restrict the Or Ein Sof. He's going to constrict it to make what's called a Halal. And that would be the outer circle. Forget about the inner circles for the time being. Just the outer circle. What is the outer circle? It's like a basketball, right? Imagine holding a basketball in the air. The basketball has air on the outside. That would be the Or Ein Sof, and has a void in the inside. Happens to have air on the inside, because in the Halal there wasn't really any Or Ein Sof, because had Or Ein Sof existed on the inside, then the Halal would disappear. So therefore what God did, he pulled his light back in a ball shape, circular shape, because everything is the same plane with equidistance from the center, as opposed to a square. You have some distances that are longer than the others. And that is called the halal. A halal means a void. Now, there's nothing physical. Don't make that mistake. Nothing physical at all. There's no rubber walls to hold the air inside and separate from the outside. There's nothing at all physical at this stage. And how is God keeping the two areas separate? Just by his will. He is willing that there should be Or Ein Sof on the outside, which is infinite, and on the inside there should be a lesser level of Or Ein Sof, in order that you should be able to have a space inside that you can start constructing the rest of creation. And that's what God does. But how do you do it? What do you build with? Or Ein Sof is the basis of everything. But there's almost no Or Ein Sof whatsoever inside the halal at this point. So how do you build? So you need Or Ein Sof. But if you bring the Or Ein Sof back in again, it's going to undo the halal, because you have the same level of light on the inside and the outside. So what does God do? He constricts that too. And he allows the Or Ein Sof, that's the little white column at the top there, if you can see it, the little white space in the middle there, it's a column, to come back in to the halal, but in a measured amount, in a way that God has got his hand on the tap, so to speak, to regulate how much light is allowed to come back into the halal that God will now use to be able to create. So imagine that, how fantastic creation is from our perspective, the entire physical world that we're living in, right? And yet it's a fraction of a fraction that goes on forever of the light that God started off with in the beginning. But he starts making in levels. So the Or Ein Sof is called level of revelation number 1. It's the first level of revelation. There's no revelation. No one can see that light. No one can relate to that light. It's in everything, but it's too spiritual, too sublime for anything to exist. But since it was a step down from what it came from, it's called a revelation, even though there's no revelation yet, as we call it revelation. But it's on the way to revelation. So it's called level of revelation number 1. And then it results in the halal, which is a result of what we call simsum and kav. Simsum means construction. Kav means a line. It's really the kav Or Ein Sof. It's that measured amount of light. So the next level of revelation, even though, again, at this stage, nothing can physically exist, even spiritually exist. No angels either at this stage. But, again, it's a step down from the Or Ein Sof. It's a level down, or a couple levels down, whatever it is, but it's less light on the way to making eventual revelation. And because of that, so it's called level of revelation 2. Second level of revelation. What's the third one? So now we're inside the halal. Now we're inside this reality. And God begins to create what's called the spheres, or the spiritual worlds. We're used to the physical world that we live in here, and it seems so vast. We have telescopes that show us now the edge of the universe, and it seems, we're talking about billions of light years away, the edge of the universe, and it's absolutely beyond comprehension, the distances and the spaces. Most of it's negative area anyhow, but it's vast. It's so vast. And yet, as vast as it is, it's nothing compared to what came before it, what came above it. And Adam Kadmon, which literally means the first man. Why is it called the first man? Because basically man has been formed in a way that mimics the actual creation of the world. You might be familiar with the 10 spheres. I know that we've spoken about this many times in the world, and many times in the past. and the world, right? And basically the point of the sphere is to act as a spiritual means to convey the light of God to lower levels, to project the light of God, each sphere reducing the light a bit more. It's a mechanism, just like transformers with electricity. You have these transformers connecting up cables, and the job of each transformer is to step down the electricity a bit more so that you can use a thinner wire, and eventually making it safe to use in someone's house, in your house at some point in time. So that's what spheres do, the exact same thing. And the spheres are shaped in the shape of a man, but the truth is, man's really shaped in the shape of spheres. And so again, these are details and discussions to have at other points in time, but that's why it's called Adam Kadmon, the first man, because it's set up like a man, so to speak, even though on this level, nothing physical exists still. It's all conceptual realities. Now that's also something to get used to, because when we talk about, ideas, a human idea is not real until it's actualized. You can decide that you're going to build a house, and you can decide what it's even going to look like, and you can work out the details, how you're going to finance it, and who you're going to hire to design it and to build it, and you go through everything, and then change your mind and not build it. You're out no money. I mean, you just took some time and some brain power, right? But you're out no money. You didn't buy a plot of land, or you have to sell it maybe, but there's no house there. It didn't become reality. So it always remained a fictitious reality until you actualize the potential. It's a potential, but it's not real, not by God. Because by God, everything that he decides to do will always happen. Nothing will stand in its way. So if God decides to do something, it's as good as real. It's more real than anything we're going to do in the end. Even the physical things we actually actualize is still more real than that. But on this level, it's only a conceptual level, still totally spiritual, and as a potential. It's all potential, but since it's going to eventually result in what comes below it, it's called reality in terms of God. It's a little bit of an abstract concept to get used to, but that's the way it goes. So now we have Adam Kadmon. That's called level 3 revelation. That's the third level of revelation. Again, nothing's being revealed. We don't even have spirits in this level in any real way, but it's going in that direction. The next step, the next level, is already a fundamentally different level of revelation than all the previous ones. When you go to the next level, which is Atzilus, which literally means emanations, but the level of Atzilus after Adam Kadmon is already the creation of spheres. Again, they're spiritual, but they are in fact creations. In fact, they're so well defined, they have names. Keser, Chachma, Bina, all the way down to Malchus. When you have a name for something, it means it's defined. It's something, your name defines you, right? Like the word, it puts you in time and space. You are different from that thing. As long as someone doesn't know your name, it's like you don't even exist. But the moment you have a name, that's the reality. That's why naming a child is so important. We do it as soon as possible, because there's a certain lack of reality until the child's named. So we even go so far as to give names to the light of God. On the level of Adam Kadmon, there's no names to describe the light of God on any level. On the level of Atzilus, we start using names of God. The first one being Yud Kei Vav Kei, which we don't pronounce today. The way it's written, that's like the trunk, that's the main name, but all other names branch off of as we go further down. Shakai, Elohim, all the other names we have for Kodesh Baruch Hu, nicknames, and they all come from this name, but it's the first level we actually use a name to describe the reality of God, but not the reality of God, but rather the reality of the projection of his light, because we're never talking about God in essence, per se. We're talking about what he shows us of his light in reality. So this is the level of Atzilus, and that's considered to be a level of creation, even though it's a completely spiritual and eventually godly world. It doesn't start up being so godly, but God injects, he unifies with this level of reality. These are very, very Kabbalistic ideas. This Kabbalah is not in Kabbalah 101, this Kabbalah 404 already, right? And this is what gives it Atzilus its reality, but completely spiritual reality. It's still on the level of ayin. Ayin means nothing technically, but it only means nothing. I mean, as a word, it means nothing, but it's only used here to mean nothing, meaning that the reality is so spiritual, it's so distant from the physical reality, it's as if it doesn't exist. So it's called ayib. It's a very, very high level of God's light. Actually, the level of Adam Kadmon. And which is not describing him, it's telling you what it's not. It's nothing. It's like we can't describe it. On the level of Atzilus, we start using actual names itself, but still, because it's a very spiritual reality, it's still called the level of ayib. That's level 4 revelation. That's the 4th level of revelation that we're not going to see again until much later in history. We don't have access to it right now. Not really. Even Moshe Rabbeinu, they say, could not enter it. Adam HaRishon began in that level to some degree, but he lost it. And no one else has ever gone back there. The Chanuch, they say, had certain levels of the soul from there. But after that, even Moshe Rabbeinu himself, Moshe Rabbeinu could see into Atzilus to some degree, but he couldn't go into Atzilus and he was on the level of the Oregon News, which is amazing. But that's the 4th level. And from that comes the physical world. Now we go to the next level, the next 3 levels below that, right? Now we go back to the circles. So the bottom 3 levels inside, again, if you want the chart, I'll send it to you. I don't know if you can read those names, but they're the names of the worlds themselves. And the bottom 3 levels, even though there are 3 different levels, Bria is higher, Yitzir, which Bria means usually creation from nothing, right? And Yetzirah means formation, taking what exists and then making things from it, right? That's a level down. And finally, the world of Vasi, which means action, which is the world that we live in. We are literally at the bottom of the totem pole, the spiritual totem pole, mamash at the bottom of all of it. We didn't begin that way. We're a little higher up before the sin of the tree of knowledge, good and evil, but that's where we are today. So, and our physical universe is down there too. It's not above that. It did go higher before the sin, but Adam's sin transformed everything in the world and made everything very physical. So now it's all on the bottom level. But even though they're all different levels, they are grouped together because as a Bria down, we're talking physical creation. The Torah says, Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz, that's Bria. And now we're going to work our way through the 6 days through Yitzirah and Asiyah. Gan Eden was in love with Yitzirah. And Asiyah was on a higher level, a little bit complicated, but the sin caused them to become like an apartment building, one floor on top of the other, until that's where we are today, and that's called level 5, level of revelation. That's the 5th level of revelation. These are the 5 levels of revelation that God created from the beginning in order to make possible the existence of man to whom He wanted to reveal Himself. That's all of life. That's all of history. That's what's going on today, what's going on tomorrow. That's what Zechariah says. On that, eventually what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. What does Mashiach coming mean? It doesn't mean that you're going to no longer have to pay your mortgage. Not necessarily. I don't think so. Right? Because the Rambam thinks they pretty much physically the same. Right? It doesn't mean that automatically your credit cards get miraculously paid. Not that I'm aware of. It means that all of a sudden, everybody is no longer going to have a question about God's existence, and not because intellectually they've resolved it, because that's what Kiruv does, right? Outreach, a person becomes a Baal Tshuva, not because they have an emotional experience of God. It's all ideas. It makes sense. It's logical. Now, as you become religious and you start to hopefully, to absorb that knowledge, by taking the 4th step of understanding what God's trying to tell us through it, then you will start to feel it more emotionally, because God does share the experience. We'll see later on how that works in terms of mitzvahs and learning Torah. But in the meantime, it's mostly cerebral. But on that day that God's going to be one, it's going to be experiential at the same time. And it'll be overwhelmingly pleasurable and amazing. Of course, if someone has spent the entire life living according to the assumption that God was not real and the Torah did not come from Mount Sinai, they may have a tough time adjusting to that. In fact, some people might not even last because of the shock. The trauma may be too much. So in the meantime, that's why we're learning Torah and mitzvahs. We're preparing ourselves for this level of revelation. But you have to understand and think about it, because it's very important, especially as we move forward through this material, that this is not just a class in Kabbalah. This is not just a hashkafa class, a Torah philosophy class. This is telling you right now that if you understand this, you will be in touch with the very reason why you are here and what you're supposed to do while you're this world. And so few people know this. And the reason why it's so important now is because history is winding down very quickly, much quicker than people think and they take for granted, and you have to be prepared. And this is the main preparation that we have to do in advance of Mashiach's arrival, because that's what it's going to come down to. How ready are you for the revelation of God? So, B'ezras Hashem, we'll talk more about this in the upcoming weeks, God willing, and see how pans out in terms of history and how to apply it to everyday life. In the meantime, everyone should have a Shabbat Shalom, and we should only have good news, B'ezras Hashem, and be vehicles to be able to reveal God in this world. Miracles, niflos, nisim, niflos all the time.